Good day everyone, Cpt.AirWolf here with another VR video. This time we are in beautiful Queenstown, New Zealand. I mean, it might not be that beautiful if you're looking at the photogrammetry in the distance, but I will say, like, this is some of the better photogrammetry in the sim. Not so much for like architectural stuff, but especially the scenery, the rock, the cliffs, all of that stuff, which you'll get a better look at in a few moments here when we get started. So, what am I flying in? I am in the amazing MD500E from Cowan Sim. I've got to say, this is probably one of my favorite birds to fly, next to the 222, of course. I don't have that many helis in the sim yet, but this is definitely on my short list of favorites. And you'll see in a moment why. Cowan Sim has done an amazing job modeling the systems in this aircraft. Now, I am not a heli pilot. I do have a commercial pilot's license for fixed wing, and I've always dreamed of being a helicopter pilot, but it was a little bit cost prohibitive, we'll just say. So, yeah, I get to enjoy it in the sim instead, which is a lot more economical, as I'm sure most of you guys will agree. But I mean, it's an amazing time for simmers, because with headsets like the Pimax Crystal and its amazing clarity and tracking, to the amazing aircraft that we have access to now, you know, it's about as good as you can have, short of being in the real thing, obviously. All right, so with that being said, I've made a few changes to my settings, so hopefully the video might be a little bit better than it was the last time. Still sort of trying to tweak and find the best possible settings. I don't yet have the software that gives me the ability to activate dynamic foveated rendering, so I'm a little bit lacking in that regard. Like, that's definitely gonna give me a lot of extra frames when I can finally get that software. It's still in beta testing right now, so I'm really looking forward to having my hands on it soon. So, what are we gonna do? We are going to be taking off from the Queenstown airport. I'm actually in the parking area right now, which you guys can see here, and we're gonna sort of take off from a cold and dark rather than just taking the easy route. So it'll give you guys an opportunity to see what that's like in the MD500. Like I stated before, I am not an actual MD500 pilot, nor am I an actual rotor wing pilot. So please forgive me if I get any of these steps wrong. The other thing too is that although I do like to study the procedures, I cannot easily access them in VR. I haven't really figured that out yet, which I'm going to be looking into for sure, because I'd love to be able to just follow the actual procedures. But that being said, Cowan Sim has included PDFs of the procedures, all procedures for the MD500 in the actual install folder. So for those of you interested in that, definitely take a look at what he's got in there. It's phenomenal. So I've done my best to study them in advance, and we'll give it a shot. All right, here we go. So first thing I'm going to do is turn on my battery. Don't want that on the ground unit. There we go, battery's on. I'm going to turn the fuel pump on for about 5 to 8 seconds. This is just going to get some fuel in the fuel lines. You don't want to leave it on though, because it's unnecessary. That's more than enough. I will get my recognition lights turned on. Don't need pitot heat, don't need re-engine test. I'm going to leave those off. Don't need anti-ice. I'm going to get my nav lights on as well. You can put cabin light if you feel like it. Doesn't necessarily need it. Do not need the alternator turned on right now. And of course I'm going to turn my ignition key. So before I go any further, one thing I want to make sure of, and I'll mention it for you guys as well here, is I need to make sure that I'm in idle. So I'll show you a situation where you might not be. If you've moved the throttle forward at all, you'll see that there's this retention nut here. If this is pushed in, you're not in idle. So what you want to do is click on it to get it back, and then you can move the throttle back into its idle position. So you'll see if I move it forward there that the retention nut pops back out. So you cannot go to idle position once it's locked in. You'll need to click on it and then move it back into idle. Alright, so next thing I'm going to check here is my rotor brake. Make sure it's not active. You do not want your rotor brake on if you're trying to start up. So that's looking good. Okay, so before we engage the starter here, a few things. As soon as I engage the starter, my turbine RPM is going to start to increase. So what I want to do there is keep an eye out for my N1 marker, which is between 10 to 15 is what I'm aiming for there. If at that point it has not started, the engine has not started, you should probably abort, essentially, because you'll risk a hot start. Once you reach that 15 sort of marker there on the N1, you want to start introducing some fuel. Obviously don't crank it, just give it a little bit of fuel, and then what you'll want to do is you'll want to keep an eye on the rotors. They should begin to spin at that point. So we're going to give this a shot and see how it works out for us. Alright, so the starter is hidden actually. It's actually behind the collective, so for those of you wondering. So if you just position your mouse here, you'll see that you can engage the starter switch. I also have it bound to one of my keys on my collective. But I'll do it like this for you guys, and what I want you to do, as soon as I click on this, keep an eye on that N1. You'll start to see it creeping forward. There it is. Okay, I'm going to introduce a little bit of fuel. There we go. Rotor blades have started to spin. That's a good sign. Watching my rotor RPM, my turbine. The other thing you want to make sure of is your TOT. That's your temperature for your turbine exhaust, or outlet I should say. You want to make sure that stays in the green. Alright, so rotors look like they're spinning nicely. I'm going to set that to max. At this point the rotors are in govern mode, so they'll be managed by the engine. The MD500 has a governor as opposed to a FADEC system, but essentially the idea there is the same. Alright, so we're looking good. Gauges are all in the green. Turn these on. Alright, let's go for a spin. So I'm going to start raising the collective slightly here. Alright. Beautiful Queenstown Airport ahead of us. And we're going to make our way to that cliff face up ahead in the forward there. I just want to show you guys some of the photogrammetry details. I will say, like, when you're on the ground in a heli, the photogrammetry is questionable at best, but it looks absolutely fantastic when you're up at altitude. You can, like, all those little imperfections that we see up close, they just disappear, and you just see the absolute gorgeous detail, which you guys will see in a moment. Oh, beautiful reflection from the sun there. It's actually morning right now. I think it was 8 a.m. My apologies if the flight is a little bit shaky. I am very much still getting used to being able to fly with a real collective. Prior to this, I was using a Thrustmaster throttle, and it just takes some getting used to. Absolutely gorgeous. I've got to say, as a Canadian, I find New Zealand one of the most beautiful places on earth. Maybe I'm giving a little bit of bias since I love the Lord of the Rings series, but I mean, look at that. That's just absolutely gorgeous. A giant playground. Beautiful. Alright, let's follow this valley down here. Might do a little bit of low-level flying across, and follow that river. So let's talk a little bit about this heli. So there are two MD500s in the sim right now. Well, I shouldn't say MD500s, but there's Cowan Sims MD500E, and then there's also an MD530 Shrike from Milviz. I've actually got them both, so at some point I'll take you guys for a flight in that one as well, just so you can see the differences. They're both extremely fun to fly. I would have to give the edge, though, to Cowan Sims, and I say that mostly because they've done a slightly better job with the sound design of the actual helicopter. But the systems in both are really well done, and they're super fun to fly. You really can't go wrong with either one of them. One thing I've noticed about watching my VR videos is that it actually pales in comparison to what I actually see, unfortunately. The video quality inside the headset ends up being much nicer than what I'm able to record, partially because the mirror view that Pimax XR gives you ends up cutting a lot of the image out, and so you end up being forced to display just a fraction of what you're actually able to see. And so what might look like a little bit of tunnel vision to you guys in the video is quite an amazing FOV for me in the sim. For those of you wondering what I'm running for settings right now, I'm actually running high-end settings. I have found that I'm able to fly with a frame rate of around 38, as you guys can see in the headset right there now. Anywhere from 38 to 45 depending on the scenery, and no, it feels good. So I mean, obviously I'm looking forward to getting it higher, but I'm not really tempted to lower my settings just so I can get it up. And the odd thing in my particular case too is even if I lower my settings, it seems to max out at 45. Like, it does not want to go much higher than that in VR for some odd reason. If I kick it out of VR, then I'm up in the 80s, 70s, 80s. So just got to follow this road here. It looks pretty cool. But yeah, the Pimax headset. I have never used a Pimax headset before prior to the Crystal, though I do have experience with the Vive Pro. But I could never use the Vive Pro for flight simming. Like, it was just so blurry, the image, and the God rays from the cheap Fresnel lenses they use. Like, honestly, like, after using the Vive Pro, I swore off Vive products. Like, I was just that disappointed with it. But this Crystal is beyond anything I could have possibly imagined. I highly recommend you guys try one out if you get an opportunity. I have tried the Vario Aero, which I would say is a close second to this headset. Phenomenal headset by its own right, but in their defense, the Vario Aero has also been out for 2 years, so we can't really compare it to something that just came out now. All right, that looks like pretty much of the same, so I'm going to turn back around here. See if we can get above this. So I think in the MD500, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the ceiling is about 16,000 feet or so. So it's definitely not meant to fly at really high altitudes. And that would make sense, seeing as how the cockpit's unpressurized and stuff. So you'd probably want to use oxygen if you were above 10,000 for any length of time. Check out the scenery though. Beautiful. Ooh, got a little bit of gust of wind there. Look at that valley. Wow. One thing I did want to mention to you guys, for those of you who are looking for more content, is I'm definitely open to feedback as to what you guys would like to see more of. So please leave a comment under the video and tell me what you guys would like to see. I'll probably give you guys a quick look at my aircraft list. And yeah, that way if you guys are interested in any particular type of flying, I'll do my best to provide that content and show you guys what it's like in VR. Let's cut the collective here and dive down. Start putting in some collective again. One thing I've noticed about using a real cyclic as opposed to what I had before is I don't have any curves applied to it, so it's like perfectly one-to-one, and when I'm flying smaller birds like the MD500 for example, I find that it's super sensitive, like to touch, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys know anyone out there that flies one, if you're a pilot yourself, I think that's true to life in the sense that like the cyclic is very sensitive on these birds, and so that's probably why you notice there that the helicopter tends to move a lot. I actually prefer larger helicopters for that reason, but the upside is that these kind of helis are really great for training, because this is what's going to help you improve your hands and feet. That beautiful snaking river there ahead of us. I'm going to set the bird down on this little sand dune or sandbar, and then I'll go and show you guys the aircraft list for the next video. But yeah, Joshua, if you see this video, man, great work on the MD500. Highly recommend this chopper. It's absolutely amazing. We'll just gently set it down here. Oh, shit. Alright, I probably just busted the skids there, but at least we're on the ground. Okay, so we are going to set our throttle to idle. We're going to kill the fuel, the ignition, was a nice little flight. Head back to the menu now, and I'll give you guys a look at my excuse me, my aircraft selection. There's the MD500, and so let's start from the top here. So I'll just quickly scroll down here so you guys can see. It's quite a sizable collection with a lot of variety. So yeah, if you guys spot anything here that you would like me to fly in the sim, just leave a comment. I'll probably just randomly pick from the comments, and we'll try that for the next one. There are a few vehicles that will be an exception to that, and because they're just vehicles that are currently in development. And I can't quite show them just yet, but yeah, so that is the list. Quite a sizable one. Anyhow, thank you so much for coming along with me on that flight, and hopefully we can do this again very soon. Thanks, guys.